Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And I go back a long way. So, age aside, I've seen a few things in my life. And one of those that I saw in 1995 was the winning of the Rugby World Cup on this very, very day, 30 years ago. And I had so much enthusiasm after having been in Australia in 1992 and seen that debacle, England and South Africa in Sydney. And then hoping that the inspiration of the rugby would further South Africa's quest to bring back glory. We, of course, then brought back the Cup of Nations. And oh, how many times we faltered on the cricket field. Well, the good news is, as you've heard me lamenting on, the World Test champions are now South Africa. And joining us on the program this evening, somebody who I know has also been waiting for that day with great anticipation is the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Cricket Association, Andrew Bretsky. Andrew, welcome to the program. Welcome home. Is there a smile still on your face?
It won't leave for a while. Phenomenally great feeling and a wonderful experience to be there, actually. So yeah, your intro was spot on. We've waited a long time and we've now won an ICC event and we won it handsomely and well. At the home of cricket, it ticked every box, and I think that's what's great about it.
The home of cricket, absolutely, but it seemed like a home for many South Africans as well. The people in the crowd were quite spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, I was over there with my family, which made it special, but it was as if it was at Newlands, and I think the enduring memory apart from the actual cricket was, when Aiden was doing so well and Temba and KG, is the crowd just chanting their name. And everyone who was an Englishman there was actually backing us as well, which just made it even more interesting. You get off the tube and the security guard says, "Come on, South Africa, you've got to do this for us," So it was a very special occasion. And yeah, like I say, it just went really well. And for me, it was quite emotional. I'm not embarrassed to say that, especially on day one, given my involvement with the team and some of the issues we were dealing with before the match, to actually be there and see the guys playing and see KG doing so well. It was really quite emotional for me.
Yeah, let's go back, if we may. I mean, everybody keeps talking about the way we won and who we played to get there. But at the end of the day, if we go back, and you and I had a long conversation about this, as you've regularly been on this program, to that tour to New Zealand over the period where there was the SA20 was going on, and it was an understrength side that went to New Zealand, and it didn't look at that stage as if we had any hope of getting to a World Test Championship. But oh, how times changed, and I know it's the old cliche, and I love using it. Cricket's a funny game.
It is a funny game. I think there's one thing that, in this chaos that is the world of cricket, which we could spend hours discussing, is there's one thing that is a common factor amongst most nations, but specifically about this group of players as well. They want to play Test cricket. Test cricket is the ultimate. Players see that, they understand that, and I mean, it's played out in front of us over 4 days why it's the ultimate. It's the ebb and flow, etc., etc. So the players were more than upset about what happened with the New Zealand series. So it isn't as if we have a group of players who go, "Oh, well, whatever," type of thing. It's no, hang on a sec, we want to play Test cricket. We want to be the best at Test cricket. We recognize that is the ultimate test of your cricketing ability and skill and strategy around the game, etc., etc. And I think that was what was upsetting about the New Zealand series as a starting point on this current cycle was, we're on the back foot, but we actually want to play this. And then we played what was in front of us and we beat everybody. And I think we're on a 9-10 match beaten streak. And yes, the system isn't perfect, but we did what we have to do. We played against the best team over the last 4 or 5 years in Test cricket in Australia. We played against them and we beat them. So you can't take anything away from us.
I think unfairly, and I might at times be responsible for the comment I'm about to make, we as cricket fans, and people know me as a broadcaster, but I'm ultimately a cricket fan, we kind of sometimes see our players as mercenaries with this T20 competition and the money that's out there for them to be made. But it's not quite fair, is it? I mean, and I do apologize if ever I have come across and sounded as, but why doesn't he play in this tournament? Why doesn't he go here? Why doesn't he go there? It was shown, there's no doubt, it was shown in the way that the players embraced the challenge ahead of them after that New Zealand tour and have now come out on top.
Yeah, and I think if you when I say it was emotional for me, and I talk about the issues before, there was the KG suspension, there was the suspension of the IPL, which led to it restarting, which led to its finish date being later, which led to the teams wanting our players to stay in India, which led to ongoing conversations around the players have to leave because the players have to prepare. So the players become the pawns in this massive political chessboard, and the players actually recognize we need to get to England. We need to have a 10-day period where we actually are just focused on white ball cricket. If you remember, Aiden came off a very successful IPL, a long IPL, which in some ways is probably the future of the game when you see how well he batted in a test match to get 136, for example. But the players' commitment to the event was 100%. There was no like, oh, I need to play the left of the IPL. It's I've got to get there. So I do think sometimes that's unfair. It's a tricky one, Louis. If you say to someone, well, this is worth 25 million to you, what you're playing at the moment, and when you go and play your test match, it's not worth nearly that for you. From a pure financial security point of view, you're weighing that up against what you really want to do. That's the problem in the world of cricket at the moment, is where the money is and where the money's flowing and what pressure it puts players under to make decisions about their career. But the commitment from our players to this event was evidenced by the celebration. You could see what it meant to them and still means to them.
You mentioned all those factors that led up to the game at Lord's, the IPL, the suspension of the IPL, KG Rabada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I couldn't imagine what the climate and the scenario would have been if there wasn't the South African Cricketers Association and somebody like yourself. And I'm not blowing smoke up your you-know-what, because clearly young guys, who they're young blokes. How would they have ever dealt with that scenario? And again, not wanting to knock the administrators in this game, but where were they at all of this time if it wasn't for you and your organization and the people around you?
That's kind of you, Louis. I like to think of it as we're all stakeholders in the game. We all have the same objectives. We want South African cricket to be successful. We've all got to pull our weight and do what we can to make it successful. And if we've got to push there and push there and do work here, we all have to do it. I do think the coaching setup, how they set up for the Proteas was good, and CSA need to get credit for that. Enoch Nokwe as Director of Cricket has done good things. What has changed at Cricket South Africa, which has helped our cricket immeasurably, is that in the last 18 months, the politics around Cricket South Africa itself as an organization, I'm not talking about all the other stuff we've got at members level and provinces and that, within Cricket South Africa has meant that there has been a focus on cricket, which there wasn't in the previous 5, 6, 7 years, because there was so much stuff, let me put it, use a polite word, going on, that your coach was involved, there was this going on, there was this inquiry, there was that. Cricket is the last thing on everybody's mind. So in the last 18 months, 2 years, there has been a reg to say, cheapers, if we want to be successful, my word, we've got to focus on cricket. And that has been good from CSA. So I'll give them credit there. And in that sense, we've worked closely with them and well with them to say, let's actually focus on the team. So I was with the team 4 or 5 days before the game in London, and it's probably the most relaxed I've seen a Proteas team before a big event. And even Shukri commented to me and said, this team is really relaxed. They're very confident. We're in a good space. And that's credit to team management and CSA to create that environment. The stuff that happens behind the scenes where we have to get our hands dirty, we dive in there and we've got to sort out stuff. And there was a lot of stuff before this event. Again, a lot of relief when the game actually started and fantastic joy when players did well.
You talk about Cricket South Africa, and yes, I do knock them. And most of the time, quite right. And occasionally, maybe I'm a bit too harsh on them. But one thing that I do give them credit for, and clearly they are getting stuff right, because, over and above getting us to the World Test Championship, and we've got some new sponsors on board, albeit one or two that were there previously and might, tongue-in-cheek, have jumped on the bandwagon because we made it to the World Test Championship final. But that in itself is a circle that helps the players ultimately, because there's more money coming into the game.
Exactly. And I think sponsorship stands on two legs. If you look at really probably a bit superficially, but the one is sponsors don't want political issues around a sport. They don't want that. They don't want it to tarnish their brand. It's not a good look for them. So once and CSA went through that. They started by losing Standard Bank. They lost everybody. sponsorship revenue plummeted. In the last 12 months, it started coming back because people say, well, actually, you can just focus on the cricket. It's why the SA20 is very successful, because it's pure cricket in that sense. There's none of the other noise. So the first leg is sort your house out in terms of the politics, and I think CS have gone a long way to do that. I still think there are major issues there around provinces, but that's another debate. And then the second leg is you got to start winning. Everybody loves a winner, especially in South Africa. And the Springboks have proved that. And yes, there are now lots of people knocking on the door to say, well, they're good, and they're good characters in this team. Timber's a great guy, he's a good leader, he's modest. And you've got the superstars like the Rabadi, you've got Markram, who's just, showed how world class he is. And people like that. So the Springbok model is slightly reflecting now on the cricketers as well, which is great. The challenge for all our sports is that the economy is not great for sponsorship. Big sponsorship deals are few and far between. So that's a challenge that is in the market generally. But things are looking better for cricket. That's a positive. The other thing, Louis, that I think is exciting about our game is, which we didn't necessarily have a couple of years ago, is there are a lot of youngsters coming through who can come through and do well, and they're actually playing against Zimbabwe now. So the Leandre Pretorius, Quenema Parkers, those players, Devot Brevis is really seems to have turned a corner, is playing beautifully. There's Matthew Breedsky, etc., etc. So we've got an A team, but we've also got a lot of guys knocking on the door. And again, if you look at the Springboks, that's where they became so strong. They had depth. We suddenly are starting to see some really good depth coming through, which augurs well for our team.
One thing that we'll touch on as we go forward, and I do like the way you've mentioned it, led me into the young players and the tour to Zimbabwe. We'll touch on it in a moment, but I'd just like to go back to day one and day two. All the preparation, everything has happened, everything has gone according to plan. We've got Australia in a spot of bother. We've bowled them out relatively cheaply. What were you feeling like when we were bowled out for 130 odd? You must have thought, oh no, here we go again.
Well, we walked into the ground and I turned to my son. It was overcast. And I turned to my son, I said, keepers, I hope we win the toss and bowl, because it really looks like it's going to do something this morning. And that happened, so I was mightily relieved. And then as the day wore on and we were going to get them out in day one, I turned to my son, I said, you know what, that bowling attack of theirs is starting to look ominous, because they've got an unbelievable fast bowling attack.
Yeah.
Stark and Cummins. And that proved true in the sense that they came hard and we were 4 down at the close, I think it was. And then we didn't get a great score to start with. And then I think for people who've watched cricket a long time like yourself, the Australian way would have been, they then go and pop 350 on the board and you're chasing 420 to win in the fourth innings. And then suddenly on day two, there was that spell of wickets from Lungi and that one of Smith, where suddenly everyone in the South African camp turned around and said, hang on a sec, we can do this. We've got these guys on the ropes. So the emotional ups and downs of that test match were unbelievable. I've never experienced a test match like that in my life before, in terms of every session was so critical. And then only time I think we were truly on top was in that day three when Temba and Aiden were together and they had that fantastic stand, when you felt, actually, you know what, we're on track here, we can win this. So yeah, that toss was important. I again, walking to the ground on day three, there was an old English gentleman next to me, and he said to me, you'll win this test because you're batting on day three, and the team that bats on day three wins tests at Lord's. So I just said to him, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Gave him a pat on the shoulder. So yeah, things worked out for us in terms of when we batted, but that's the nature of what Test cricket is.
And that's why it's such a wonderful game, Test cricket. So let's just look at the performances. And I don't want to bring any one particular performance as a standout performance, because all of them deserve everything that they get. But let's not forget, and I know there's been so much talk about the Lungis coming in and that one bowling spell he had, and Markram's magnificent innings, and Temba's grit and determination. This is something that future stars like the youngsters that you've mentioned will be able to look back upon and say, look at what our previous generations have done. And I think we also need to recognize, you take a guy like Ryan Rickleton's 275, whatever it was at Newlands against Pakistan, that game could have determined the total opposite of the jubilation that we've had. If we'd lost to Pakistan, we might not have made it to the World Test Championship final. And even though he might not have performed in the final, and again, without wanting to single one particular person out, the joint effort between not just the squad that went, the entire squad, the entire team that it's been built around, and the great future that we're looking at with the youngsters you've mentioned is something that must make you feel like there's some hope going forward here. Lots of it.
There is, I think we've had, from that period of 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, cricket's been in the doldrums. We've had so many challenges, and, we had those global leagues, the MSL T20s failing, costing CSA millions. We turned a corner, the SA20 came along, and whether you like T20 or not, it's been a very good product. It's brought in revenue. It's put us on the international map. That was a positive step. It's improved our white ball game. We made a final of the World T20 last year in the Americas. We made the semi-final of the World Cup the year before. So suddenly our team started performing and players are coming through. So those are, you're right, Libby, those are all positive things that make us happy. There are massive challenges in the game which keep me awake at night. But what would keep me more awake at night is if we didn't have talent coming through and opportunities for that talent. And we do have talent coming through and we do have opportunities for that talent. The structures around the game and all that is a world problem that threatens the game. But and the other place I see it is the investment in the development of schools cricket at the moment is significant. Cricket is quite an exclusive game because of the cost of running cricket, whether it's bats or fields, etc., etc. But it's still a very popular game at our schools, and our schools are doing very well, and new schools are coming on board that are investing in cricket. So I think we're in a significantly better place than we were 5 years ago. Let's put it that way.
You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these.
Couples who've been together 25 years still don't always reach this place because it isn't about time. It's about intention. It's about choosing connection, even when it's inconvenient, even when ego wants to win, even when the silence feels safer than saying, I still choose you.
In episode 74 of Unique Yet Connected podcast, we explore what it really takes to reach the perfect relationship. Not perfect by society's lens, but perfect in presence, in truth, in choosing love on purpose. This one will stay with you, whether you are loving, leaving, or learning to love better.
Episode 74 is uploading on 29th June 2025 from 10 a.m. South African Standard Time on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and on our website www.uniqueyetconnected.com.
Because connection isn't a destination, it is a daily decision.
Remember to subscribe, share, like, and engage with us.
Hello, everybody. Join me on the next edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room as I, like you, will find out all about Devon Peterson and Cameron Carlson, two names that most probably you and I had never heard of. But we'll know all about them because they are going to represent South Africa as World Darts team players in the World Darts Championship. If you didn't know that, join us on Wednesday evening as we talk to South Africa's World Darts players. I can't keep bowling line and length to you. There's always going to be the odd googly or bouncer coming your way. It's all about momentum, isn't it? And living off the success. Yet, no fault of your own. We're not going to play Test cricket in this country for 18 months. They're not going to see. Can you imagine not seeing the Springboks playing in South Africa after winning the World Cup? And our structures going forward need to be looked at.
Yeah, Louis, I was at Lord's on the Saturday and Sunday before the Test match. We had the MCC held a Cricket Connect conference, which is sort of all 100-odd people involved in cricket around the world, administrators, etc., etc. And we actually discussed, debate, have breakaways about the future of the game and the money. And, World Cricketers, we did a very comprehensive report on the future of the game and how do we save bilateral cricket and specifically Test cricket relative to T20 events. And if we don't get those discussions going and get solutions to those, then Test cricket will die. And, people have come to me and said, we won the Test World Championship. Obviously, we're going to play more Test cricket now. And the answer is no. That's our sad reality. So if you look at the next cycle, which starts now, a 2-year cycle for the next World Test Championship, we're playing 14 Test matches, 8 at home and 6 away. Australia are playing 22. I think England are 21 and India are 18 or 19. So it's not a even playing field. And there's no control over the calendar as to when Test cricket can get played. So the test windows, as much as they exist, are being squeezed. So we don't play 3 test series anymore. We're actually playing one against England next year, thankfully, here, because you have to have a month for a 3 test series, and nobody has a month anymore. So the domestic T20 franchise events are squeezing the calendar to the point where Test cricket is if we don't do something about it, it's going to die, which is very difficult for me to say. Remembering as well that Test cricket is expensive. That, by the way, that Test match at Lord's was probably the most expensive Test match that's ever been staged. The ICC funded it. There were 52 cameras. The extent of everything that was there made it one of the most expensive Test matches ever. But that's Test cricket is expensive. So if I can play 3 T20 games in a week, I can make 3 times 9 million. That's 27 million US dollars. One Test match in that period on a broadcast deal will maybe get me $4-5 million. So which one am I going to do if I want cricket to survive in my country? That's our reality. So when I talk about how great things are in terms of the pipeline and talent and opportunities to play, etc., this is the negative. And you might say to me, so what is the solution? Well, at World Cricketers, where we sit down as a group, that's all of us from around the world, and we brainstorm these things, and we get really intelligent people in the room. We do believe there should be windows for Test cricket where T20 events can't be played. And if January is a T20 window where T20s are, and the SA20 has to go up against other T20 events, then so be it. But February, March, for example, or not then the IPL starts, but June, July, we think there should be about 2 or 3 windows where teams must play Test cricket. Otherwise, Test cricket will just diminish. And that's the fear, because it still is the ultimate format. But it's not generating the revenue, and it's been squeezed out in the calendar by revenue generating T20 cricket.
People will be listening and be asking themselves, but then, and I ask the question on their behalf, but then how can England be playing India in a 5-test series right now, and South Africa can never play a 5-test series? What's the difference?
Big money generator. That's a big money generator. For the ECB, that's probably their biggest income generator they ever have. 5 Test matches against India at home will attract a significant broadcast agreement and sponsorship agreement. So it's worth their while, as is the Ashes. That's just it. South Africa's only profitable, from a broadcast deal point of view, Test series will be when we play India at home. And we don't actually play them at home in this 2-year cycle. So financially, that's not good for us. This is not a good 2-year financial period for us. Yes, England come and Australia come, and that will be a better deal. But at the same time, there's only so much money in the broadcast deal pie. And if a lot of it's going to T20 events, less is available for bilateral cricket for the countries. It's why you see a country like Ireland, which has Test status, just doesn't really play Test cricket. It's just too expensive, and it doesn't generate revenue for them. So that's where our game in the world is not healthy. And that's why the World Test Championship final was so important, because it showed how incredibly intense and invested you can become in a Test match. It has a value. Yeah, that in a nutshell, Louis, is the great challenge we face. It's a lot of the work we do as SACA and world cricketers around how we ensure that Test cricket can survive in this world of T20 franchise events.
The World Test Championship format, was it discussed much, and is there going to be proposals and changes to it maybe?
Well, I mean, one of the proposals is that you can play more Test cricket if you have 4-day tests. So I see that the ICC are now considering that, and maybe allowing the big 3 to play 5 days and the rest 4 days, which is slightly strange to me that you do that. But anyway, because the statistics show that more tests now end in 4 days than 5 days. And the other reality is that, and it's because of the advent of so much white ball cricket, is the days of batting at 2 and over don't exist anymore. You know, we grew up with what an incredible fast run rate that was in a Test match. They were batting at 3. That's slow now. Yeah. People are batting at 4.5, 5. So Test matches do move quickly. And so I think those are the type of discussions being had. I think there's a general consensus on everyone in cricket that the current model of the World Test Championship doesn't actually work properly. And it's because it's driven by commercial broadcast agendas of countries. It's not driven by the ICC controlling a calendar and saying this is when people must play. Unlike FIFA and World Rugby, those two organizations control the calendar. And if you control the calendar, you control the sport. So it doesn't matter how powerful or rich Real Madrid or Man United are. When FIFA say, well, this is a window for international soccer, well, that's the window. Likewise in World Rugby. We don't have that in cricket. The ICC is not an organization. It's not a governing body. It's a members association. So it's up to every country to organize events as such. So that's one of the reasons why the ICC have an ICC event every year. It's to protect their space in the calendar every year, because they were worried if they didn't have an ICC event every year, they'd lose space in the calendar to T20 events and then battle to get it back. So the politics and the reality of the cricket world is very different to that in soccer and rugby, which is more established around the governing body.
This is very simplistic what I'm going to say right now, but it does sound like it makes a lot of sense. I mean, extra half an hour in each session and make them bowl quicker, as in not speed-wise, but I mean, you only get to 75 overs at the end of the day, and then they put the lights on, and then the umpire says, well, you know what, you can't bowl faster anymore because of cloud cover or whatever. I mean, the over rates are terrible these days.
Yeah, there's going to have to be a really practical approach to the playing of cricket. And for example, if you're in England and you get to 6 o'clock, you've actually got another hour of light easily.
Sure.
In the summer. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And Wimbledon actually does that. They play on until the light's not good enough, and that can go until 8 o'clock type of thing. And likewise, if you're playing in Cape Town, you could, if you started earlier, you could get more time in. So I think they're going to have to become practical approaches to Test cricket to make it more viable. And I think 4 days, I'm very much a traditionalist, but I think having to face reality, I think 4 days might actually be viable with a longer day and more overs, because if you bowl an extra 10 overs a day, 15 overs a day over 4 days, that's actually 60 overs. That's nearly another full day if you think of a 90 over day. We're going to have to think out the box and be very different and very creative. I mean, the other type of things that get discussed are, if domestic T20 leagues are making so much money, how do they start supporting Test cricket? The money shifted from the boards to these leagues. Surely it's in everybody's best interest that effectively Test cricket and bilateral cricket survives. But there are other people in the world who were in the room who said, you know what, players should just become all free agents. And already the ICC are under pressure because they have to guarantee the best players for ICC events, or they don't get the best broadcast deals. So if the ICC don't get the best broadcast deals, then the distribution to countries become less, which means countries become poorer, specifically South Africa included in that. So when you hear about top players retiring from international cricket and not then being available to play ICC events, that's not good for cricket, because a broadcaster wants the best players. So if the ICC can't guarantee the best players at ICC events, that's not good for anybody in the game, because the broadcast deal goes down. And if the broadcast deal goes down, then the distribution we do get gets less and less, which means there's less money in South African cricket, etc., etc. So in the background, those are the issues that we work with, and we try and manage, and we debate and we discuss, etc., which are not that great to deal with. But
on a final note, great to see us on the road to Zimbabwe. Great for the Zimbabwe's cricket as well as ours. And we look forward to another lovely test match. I'm sure you're excited about that too. It's not the World Test Championship, but hey, it's test cricket.
It's test cricket, and there's some youngsters who are getting a chance. I think that's a big positive. It's tough coming off such a high of the World Test Championship and then a week later getting on a plane to go and play again for some of the guys, Carl and etc. But it's time for new guys to step up and take the opportunities. There aren't that many opportunities, so when you get them, you've got to take them, and this is one of those opportunities for them.
Andrew, as always, it's lovely chatting to you. We could talk for hours and hours. In fact, our conversations shouldn't be T20. They should be 5-day test matches. We'll catch up with you again very soon. And the euphoria may long continue on, and let's continue berating the Australians and complimenting the South Africans. Let's bash them while we can, because they've done it to us for 30 years. That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room on an amazing day 30 years ago when South Africa, Nelson Mandela and Francois Pienaar lifted the William Webb Ellis Trophy. I get goosebumps thinking about it as I sat in the stadium watching the final.
Stransky back in the pocket, has the chance to drop the goal. Back it comes to Stransky. Up goes the kick. Up goes the walls. Stransky has kept his head. And with 2 minutes gone in the second period of extra time, South Africa's dream is alive once more.
And it's absolutely unbelievable. The crowd has gone mad. Joel Stransky, beautiful scrum ball. No doubt what he was going to do. And he struck it straight between the uprights.
Terrific kick from the Western Province outside half. We've seen that look before. They've just got to get the ball from the scrum and keep possession. And that's the way they'll do it, keeping it in the middle of the back and going for the line. Back it comes to Joos van der Westhuizen. A little knock forward, but that's it. South Africa have won the World Cup, having been back in international rugby for less than 3 years and having not taken part in the first two competitions. At their first attempt, they have stolen the crown. Unbelievable scenes all around the park. Francois Pina, as you can see, absolutely in tears. And the whole team crying together as they've been all the way through the tournament.
Until next time, be nice to each other and bye for now.